Welcome back, fellow data geeks. So in this video, I'm going to cover the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP formula. So they're used to look up against a list of data in a table. For example, this one down here. If there's a specific value that you know you want to look up, obviously you have options like filtering the list and things like that, but a VLOOKUP can be used in the way that I've used it here in this summary section at the top. So the VLOOKUP is using the type, so the total, and it's then looking that up against a data table and providing us with a value that we're looking for. So if I select one of the other items in the list, the VLOOKUP will then change the values in here and will give us the new values based on the text that appears in this cell here. So as with most of the videos, I'm just going to jump back to our data table that we populated because this gives us a good way of demonstrating our VLOOKUP. So if I just select a couple of the cells in here, so I'm just going to select 3 at random, and I'm going to copy those. I'm going to paste them over here. So if I know that I want to look up electric, water, and personal items from this table, we can then put a formula in which will then give us the values in one of these other columns. So, for example, if I just wanted to see the quarterly here, I know that from this first column where I've selected the values from, I know that this is 3 columns across. So the reason I say that is because all of this information is going to become important, and you will understand it more once we've covered the syntax of the formula. So as I've done in previous videos, I'm just going to start here with the VLOOKUP function. So equals VLOOKUP and open bracket. Now, as with all the other examples we've been through, you can see that Excel tries to give us some helpful kind of information about what it's looking for. So the first bit of information it needs is a lookup value. So we know that we want to look up electric. So we are going to select this cell here of Q3. That's going to be our lookup value. We type comma. And we also know that our table that we want to look up is this table over here. However, what we want to do is make sure that we don't select this first column. The reason for that is we want our lookup to be in the first column that we select. So we know that we want from column J, so our first column, we'll go all the way to the end of the table and then select all the way down. And as you can see, Excel's given us now our table array that we are looking for. So what we can do here, because we know that we are going to copy this formula down, we can actually put our anchors in. So to fix our cell references, so we want to fix the column and the row for both. So we've got our $signs before the column and before the row. Okay, so then we are going to select the comma. So the next thing we need is the column index number. Now this basically means how many columns do we need to count across from our first column. So we know electric is in here, so we want Excel to start here and we want it to count across. So this is 1, 2, 3, because we know that our quarterly information is in that 3rd column from the start of our table. So what we'll put in here is a 3. We will then put another comma. Now this range lookup at the end, we've got the options here, and Excel has actually given us the 2 options that we have, and that's true or false. So we can either have an approximate match, so it will match electric, but not with an exact match. It could be slightly different. Or we want an exact match. So we want the value that appears in this first column to match exactly to our lookup value. So we are going to select false, and Excel puts that in for us. You can obviously also type in false, and we are going to close the bracket to end our formula, and we're going to hit enter. So as you can see here, we've got 75. So if we look at our electric and go across to our quarterly, we can see that we've got 75 there as well. So Excel's given us the right information. So what we want to do now is copy this formula down. And obviously with some of the other formulas we've looked at, we've had to change them slightly or add some additional anchors because we've already fixed our table range, table array that we want to look up to. We don't need to do that. So as you can see now, Excel has automatically moved our lookup value down to Q4. So moved it down to the next row for us. And exactly the same if we select the bottom one there. Excel has moved our lookup value down to Q5, and everything else will stay the same. So that's our VLOOKUP, which is a vertical lookup. And I will type out the syntax on the screen so you can see that as well at the end. So if we go back to our formula bar up here, you can see that we've got our VLOOKUP, our open bracket, then we take the lookup value, so the cell that we want to look up the value of. We then select our table array, so this is the table that holds the information, and the first column that we select, here we've selected column J, that needs to contain our lookup value. Our column index will be the number of columns we count across. So the first column is always 1, so 1, 2, 3. If we actually wanted the yearly cost, we could change this to 4, and that would change the value that it brings back. So I'll just put that back so I don't confuse things. And then the final bit of information we need is the range lookup, and that is a true or a false. So true will give us an approximate match, and a false will give us an exact match to our lookup value. So that's the syntax for our VLOOKUP. So next I want to do a HLOOKUP. So next we've got our HLOOKUP. So that's a horizontal lookup. So instead of looking up vertically, we down one column, we'll look horizontally. So across one row, we will look across each of the columns until it finds a match, and that will become our reference point. So this time we are going to change the layout of our table slightly. So I've now put monthly, quarterly and yearly costs vertically down here. And what I'm going to do is select a couple of our values. I'm just going to select the top 3 this time and copy those across. Okay. So for the first value, we're going to put up in our formula bar. So equals HLOOKUP, and again, Excel will give us the information that it needs. So a very similar syntax to the VLOOKUP, but with the HLOOKUP, we're just looking across horizontally. So first of all, we want our lookup value. So this time our lookup value is going to be monthly. So we know that we want to have a look here. And I'll just select this data range here. So our table array. And again, I'm going to add those anchors in so that we are already set up for when we pull this formula across. Okay, so this time I'm going to select 2, and that's because I already know that mortgage and rent is our first row. And I also want an exact match, so I'm going to type in false. Close off my formula and hit return. So as you can see, this time Excel has done a lookup, so it's looked across our table array. So this table here, it's looked horizontally across to find the monthly, and it's then counted 2 rows down to give us the value that we want. So if we pull this formula down, you can see here that we have now our lookup value has updated to the next row, so to our quarterly. So this time Excel is looking across horizontally in the first row of our table. It's found quarterly and then it's counted 2 rows down. We want an exact match, so I put false, and that gives us the value of 2,400. And again, for our yearly cost, this is the value we want to match to, and Excel has looked across our table reference horizontally. It's found the yearly cost and it's then counted 2 rows down to give us the next value that we want. So if I pull across, but first of all, I'm just going to anchor this cell because we know that we want to keep that fixed to our monthly. We're going to drag this across. So obviously that's just this time our formula hasn't updated, and that's because we are still referencing the row index number of 2. So this time we know gas is the next row down, so we're going to update that to 3, and that will give us 25. And then for electric, we will update here to 4, and that will give us also our value of electric. So that's our HLOOKUP, and this scenario probably isn't a very common one that you would use. However, I am just going to jump back to our summary here, because what we've got in our summary table that we'll obviously work towards kind of building fully is we've got HLOOKUPs in here. Now this is included in a bigger formula with our if statement to handle if a cell reference is 0 and a few other things, but we are using the HLOOKUP. And what that's doing is taking the reference here in cell B8, which is this one. So each time we change the value in cell B8, you can see here that this information in the detailed table below is updating. So the way that that works is with our data validation, and we'll get into that in more detail when we start to build up that full summary table. But this just gives you another example of how you can use the HLOOKUP. So we know that these are our kind of high-level types or our categories that we've got in our data table. And these are all of the values that fit underneath those groupings that we've got. So our HLOOKUP is actually just counting across, and it's looking for the value that we have in cell B8. So for example, we've got utility here. And the reason this HLOOKUP formula has populated all of these is because if we go across to utility, we've then actually selected these values here. And again, as I said, in a future video, I will go through in more detail how to put this summary tab together. But for now, I just wanted to cover the syntax of a HLOOKUP and a VLOOKUP. I will put those on the screen so you can make note of them. And if there's any other scenarios that you've got that you're working with where you think a VLOOKUP or a HLOOKUP might be useful, but you're not quite sure, then please just add it to the comments. And I'd be happy to to give you any advice or guidance that you need, or answer any questions you have. So it was just a quick summary to cover our VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP formulas. Obviously, if you liked the video, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted for when I post any future videos. Thanks again for joining me today to cover our VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP formulas. And I'll be back soon with another video. But for now, I will see you on the next one.